Good morning. Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? I'd like to welcome everybody for this forum on traffic, co-sponsored by the town and the Palm Beach Civic Association. As many of you know, the Civic Association's commitment is to preserving and enhancing the quality of life in the town of Palm Beach. I can't think of any issue that has a greater effect on the daily lives of those residing in the town of Palm Beach these days than traffic. So we wanted to have this forum really as an effort to let the residents know what the town is doing, to perhaps have the town staff suggest some things that we as residents can do, and finally perhaps get some new suggestions and ideas on how to deal with our traffic situation. I want to thank Town Manager Blouin and his department heads for being here today and being available. They've got a lot of information they've gathered to share with us. And the way I expect this will go this morning is we'll go for some period of time with the town discussing the issues I've just discussed, what they're doing, what we can do. And then after that, I'd like to have a session where there's some feedback. We have these cards, is how we typically do our Civic Association events. We have questions that can be filled out on cards, and there's some up here where the agenda is, and there are also some in the back on the table. And we've got a couple staff members, Sally and William Kelly over there, that will be picking up these questions. So as you hear things being discussed today and you have a follow-up question, or if you have an idea that you'd like to share with us about how the town can deal with traffic, fill out one of these cards, and periodically they'll be handed up to me, and I'll ask the questions of Kirk Blouin and his staff at the latter portion of this town forum. So without any further introduction, Kirk, I'll throw it over to you. I know you've got some data in terms of the traffic situation you want to share with us so we can understand the problem. And there are a number of items that you want to share with us in terms of what the town is doing to deal with the traffic situation. So Kirk, take it from here.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to the Palm Beach Civic Association for help organize this traffic forum. Like Michael said, we're going to start off with a presentation. I'm going to sort of MC that presentation as we walk through some of the strategies and actions that the mayor and council and staff has considered. Some of these strategies have already been implemented. Some of them require more research and information and possible policy formation by the mayor and council in the future. I do want to let you know that the staff and your elected officials are fully engaged in trying to mitigate traffic here in the town. There's not a day that goes by that either I don't speak with the elected officials, members of the staff. We have the whole team that gets together weekly to discuss progress on some of these actions and try to brainstorm to create new strategies. So I'll start off with just defining the major problem here. We have a capacity and a volume issue. Capacity means limited roads that have been in existence in the town forever. It's just not enough capacity to handle the volume, meaning the number of cars that exist in the community. Things that are compounding this problem are obviously the road closure down by Mar-a-Lago. It creates great traffic difficulties for the community. The bridge openings, and we're going to get into further detail as we get into that. We have the scheduled bridge openings, which is normal bridge openings for boat traffic, and now we have a new issue with the barge traffic, and that's considered an unscheduled opening. I'll tell you what we've done, what we can and cannot do as we get a little further in the presentation. There's been an explosion of tourism and growth here in Palm Beach County, record-setting numbers year over year. That's certainly not helping the traffic, not only in Palm Beach County, but here in the town of Palm Beach. The construction, some of our town projects, the undergrounding. We're going to discuss some of the traffic mitigating strategies that we've implemented and just the private permitted construction that's occurring within the town. and just the other service-related activities. The majority of traffic that are coming onto the island are not residents. They're service workers that are coming to service the community and the homes. So the first topic of conversation, we're going to discuss traffic data analysis and flow optimization. I'm going to ask Adam Kirk. He's our traffic engineer that we consult with from Kimley Horn. And I'll let him take the presentation, start the presentation, and then members of staff will also supplement it.
Thank you very much. Adam Kerr with Kimley Horn and Associates. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to speak through the traffic volumes and the growth that we've seen here in the town of Palm Beach. We did a review of historic traffic volumes in Palm Beach, as well as in the city of West Palm Beach and in Palm Beach County. And what we've seen is that in the past 5 years in the town of Palm Beach, the annual growth rate is about 2.7%, just less than 3% every year for the past 5 years. However, in the past year, that growth rate has been 6.3%. So what that's doing is it's showing an increase in the growth of traffic in the town of Palm Beach. And that's town-wide. That's not just on the bridges. That's on about a dozen or so locations that we study and survey every year here in the town. But the growth isn't limited to just the town of Palm Beach. We wanted to understand if there was what the growth in West Palm Beach as well as surrounding Palm Beach County as a regional concern is. And what we saw there in our review of the data was that in West Palm Beach itself, around just under a 2% annual growth rate in the city of West Palm Beach as a whole on the major roadways there as well. And in Palm Beach County, so anywhere from Boca Raton to Jupiter through West Palm Beach, the growth rate there was about 1% annually around the county, but closer to 3% on the main corridors in the central part of the county, leading to West Palm Beach and the town of Palm Beach. Digging into the data a little more in the town, the Midtown area, serviced by the Middle Bridge, mostly around a 3.5% to 5% growth rate, so a little more there. And the volumes, to give you an idea of what the actual traffic volumes are like, the volumes on the bridges themselves, the North Bridge is around 19,000 trips a day coming across that bridge. Middle Bridge is the busiest at 27,000, and the South Bridge is around 12,500, and that was before any of the lane closures were implemented within the past few months. So more of a last year type situation. So you're looking at well over 50, 60,000 cars a day coming into and out of the town of Palm Beach. So we also looked at what you can do to address the volume and the increase in volume. There's really three things. You can increase the capacity of the roadways, and that's whether it's a physical capacity increase, adding lanes, adding turn lanes, things like that, or just being able to add more cars to the road somehow. So you can increase the capacity, and I'll go through a couple examples of ways that we're looking at that, as well as we can reduce the demand of the cars on the roadway network. And so that would be things like shuttle service for employees. So if 20 or 30 employees could be in a shuttle, that takes 20 or 30 cars off the road. So that's reducing the overall demand for those vehicles on the road. It could be carpooling. There's lots of other situations. And the third thing you can do is you can spread the demand. And that's what we've been looking at in terms of not everyone coming onto the island between 8 o'clock and 9:30 in the morning and leaving between 3 and 4:30. If you can spread the same amount of traffic, but spread it throughout the day with earlier arrivals, later departures, maybe some midday trips that we're currently doing in the morning or afternoon, that's the third thing. So basically you can increase the capacity, you can decrease the demand, or you can spread the same amount of traffic throughout the course of the day. Do you want me to go through some of the examples of the capacity? All right. So we've looked at a couple examples specifically along Bradley Place for ways to increase the capacity within the physical roadway capacity within the existing right-of-way, so we don't have to take right-of-way from landowners. And so the goal of that is to increase the throughput of cars, the throughput of traffic within the same amount of roadway space. So we looked ultimately restriping the roadway, so just changing the striping without changing the asphalt is quick and relatively inexpensive, but there are limitations to the amount that we can do with that. The additional capacity afforded by actually adding lanes would benefit the throughput, the traffic flow on Bradley. So I'm just going to skip through and show you some of the options we looked at. So this is the what was previously looking north on Bradley Place from Royal Poinciana, and in this so this was the previous example. What we've already implemented here is restriping this so that there was a northbound left turn lane into Sunset, and by removing that, it was a relatively low optimized turn lane. By removing that, we were able to have 2 full lanes southbound from Sunset to Royal Poinciana. That was just restriping, and that's already been done. So taking that then, so this is what that would look like now with the turn lane removed. And then we looked at some further, we are looking at some further options now further north from Sunset up to Sunrise. So this is in front of the Biltmore and the Publix. And in this situation, in this option, you'll notice between Royal Poinciana to the left and Sunset sort of in the middle of the graphic, north is to the right, we've added a right turn lane. This is one option that we're considering, a right turn lane. So we would still have 2 through lanes northbound on Bradley Place all the way through to just before Sunrise. So right now is just 1 lane there because that the other lane turns right northbound into Sunset. This would add a lane at that location and add the right turn lane into Sunset. This would remove any parking or loading zones on Bradley Place between Royal Poinciana and Sunset. So that's one option. The next option is the same thing, but not providing that right turn lane. And this would allow for the loading zone and the parking to remain between Royal Poinciana and Sunset. Moving north from Sunset, we're able to keep 2 full lanes northbound, and then the existing 1 lane southbound. So this adds capacity to traffic headed north off of the bridge, headed north onto Bradley Place, and so it helps flush out that intersection. With this option, we would be narrowing the sidewalk by about 4 feet on the block in front of Publix, but it would still be a 6-foot wide sidewalk, which is consistent or even wider than most sidewalks in the town. The next option is the same as this, but it's removing the left turn lane into the Biltmore about midway on the Publix block there. And so what that does, again, a fairly low utilized left turn lane. What that does is that allows 2 lanes of traffic southbound now, where it's only 1 today, 2 lanes to approach the Royal Poinciana intersection. So again, adding capacity, adding flow and throughput of vehicles in this segment of road. This was an option that we had talked about, but aren't likely to consider, where we could add a second right turn lane at Bradley Park to help, again, flow traffic southbound on Bradley Place to Royal Poinciana. And then we do have some renderings. So this is, again, looking north on on Bradley with the new traffic signal that will be installed at Sunset and Bradley, to give you an idea what that would look like with the proposed improvements. Here's the same thing south. And again, kind of a close-up. So that parking in front of the Publix would be removed, but this is what that would look like. There's another option that we are considering, which is for the southbound traffic on Bradley at Royal Point Sienna, would get its own dedicated right turn lane, so it could constantly free flow onto Royal Point Sienna and the bridge. And so that situation means that all the traffic coming from Bradley on Royal Point Sienna would not have to stop at the traffic light. And that's another option that we're considering. So overall, a lot of options that we're considering, working within the existing right-of-way to increase the flow of traffic.
If I could, all these alternatives have been presented to Town Council in a very preliminary format. Town Council, rightfully so, has questions about impact, cost, et cetera. We'll be coming back to Town Council with those answers, and that'll be back to what Kirk said. It'll be a policy decision at some point.
And this, for your information, is that last option I mentioned with the slip lane.
That last option that Adam's referring to is called the slip lane. We've preliminary determined it's quite costly, but we'll be presenting it to the council in the near future. And we just wanted to provide you this as an example, because we are in the process of looking at all the roadways, particularly the intersections, where we can gain some efficiencies in the traffic flow, and minor cases, a little bit of capacity increase, but mostly just inefficiencies of the traffic flow. And we'll continue to present them to the mayor council in upcoming meetings. Thank you,
All right.
Adam.
Thank you.
You have any more traffic data that you would like to share with the group?
Not data, but to build on what you just said, this same thought comes with a certain sacrifice. We lose on-street parking. So to gain capacity in town, there's going to have to be something that we give up. This same thought would probably work on county as well. We haven't presented that to town council yet, but it's give and take. If we want to increase the capacity, we're going to lose something. So we'll try to refine that alternative and bring that to mayor and town council in the near future.
Correct. So the exercise for town staff was strictly from a how to improve traffic point of view. There's obviously other considerations that the council needs to weigh on making these decisions, the trade-offs, parking cost, so on and so forth. I might want to share a small amount of data, but we have new cameras on our bridges. They're flock cameras, and they have some artificial intelligence in the cameras. And again, I don't want to jump to conclusions because we only had a limited small amount of data because they're recently up and running. And when the roadblock was lifted down at the Mar-a-Lago, it was surprising to see the impact that it had, or demand on the bridges. For instance, on the Flagler Bridge, there was a decreased use of about 16%, and on the Royal Park Bridge, decreased use of about 23% when the road closures have been lifted. So we're going to continue to move on through the presentation. Other changes, again, some of these changes are real small. I didn't even question whether it was even worth mentioning because we're just looking to mitigate it any way we can, inches, feet, yards, to make any improvement that we can within this community that we recognize is experiencing a lot of frustration relating to the traffic. We did make some changes to some of the intersections, particularly Brazilian and Barton Avenue, to help increase the flow of traffic on the main arteries, north and south, such as creating one-way roads or right turn only lanes. You might see some unsightly traffic cones right here in front of Town Hall, but if we could prevent some of the movements, it's as we're doing now with the cones, you can keep that north and south on our main arteries open. We'll have to bring that back to the council for actual design other than the cones here in the near future. Signal timing. So we do have artificial intelligence in our traffic cameras throughout the entire town, and it uses algorithms and real-time traffic data and communication with each other to make intelligent adjustments. Now, I might want to add and make this very clear, when the roads are at failure, they've reached full capacity, there's nothing that the AI or the software can do to make any adjustments that will improve the traffic. There are other times when we have to make some manual adjustments based upon the data, the amount of traffic that we're seeing in an area. Palm Beach County, again, we're all interconnected. You're only strong as your weakest link. If they're having problems in West Palm Beach, there's congested here. Well, guess what? We get no place for people to move. We also experienced those problems. Palm Beach County just received a grant for several $1 million, and they're installing artificial intelligence in their traffic cameras as well, but that will not be fully implemented until 2026. Again, small but important. Palm Beach Day Academy, staff consulted with the administration at the Day Academy, try to get those cars off of County Road, which is obviously blocking one of our major arteries and the flow, to move the pickup line a little further west down the street. That has helped getting those cars off of County Road. They're also considering staggering their pickup times for the next school year. Now, the next topic I'm going to move on to is daily traffic mitigation. That's where you see the police officers out on the street at the intersections. Primarily to increase the flow, sometimes dedicated right turn lanes, dedicated left turn lanes, obviously trying to prevent people from blocking the box, which prevents anyone from moving. They do that during the peak hours, generally from 3 to 5, Monday through Friday, and we've certainly seen some improvements by getting the officers out on the street. We're also hired some more staff. We're considering hiring some more staff for the next budget year as well. Again, just throwing resources at it doesn't always solve the problem, but it could be helpful in this situation. We do receive regular assistance, particularly from Palm Beach County Traffic Control. They will check the timing on the lights when we get complaints in the county. They also have the ability remotely in real time, because there's cameras at all these intersections, see the way the traffic is moving and make adjustments to those lights to assist the flow in Palm Beach County, which therefore in turn assists us. FDOT, we experienced a situation right over our middle bridge. We were getting traffic complaints, everything's all backed up. People are calling the police department. As it turns out, the one Flagler project, they did have a permit, but our staff checks on those permits to make sure they're in good compliance with the permit. The permits are issued by the Florida Department of Transportation, and in that case, the permit times were supposed to have ended about an hour and a half earlier in the day. They still had 2 lanes completely closed off, which was preventing people from moving westbound off that middle bridge. So they've agreed to inform us when there's those permits issued in our general area in West Palm Beach, and we will continue to follow up when we experience traffic problems to make sure they're in compliance with that permit. Next topic I'm going to move on is to underground project and phasing. Good news is we're almost at the end of the project. When I say almost, we're still several years out. We got another 2 years of undergrounding, but we did make some adjustments to the project phasing. For instance, we're delaying any directional drilling on our main arteries until the summertime. So we'll continue to work on the east and west streets. We'll try to get all the main traffic arteries in town done during the off-season in the summertime. We recently completed a change order that we brought to the council for consideration. That was going to be roughly 15 days between Coconut and County Road during the middle of the day. Obviously, with all the traffic problems that we've been experiencing, we said we might want to do a change order. There was an increase in cost. That's a trade-off here. There was a substantial increase in cost, but we brought it to the council for consideration, and they approved it, so we were able to complete that work during the nighttime. And paving. Some of the roads look pretty bad. They're in need of some TLC, and we recognize that, but we're focusing, again, a little heavier on the traffic side of the equation, and we're delaying that to the summertime to complete the paving projects. Moving,
If I could,
you jump in, anyone could jump in at any time when I'm on, because they have their own little areas of concerns and responsibilities and knowledge, so I want them to jump in and supplement my statements.
we're non-undergrounding, but public works projects. We're looking at nighttime work, weekend work, anything to get us out of rush hour. Same thing with our regular services. We've pulled trash and sanitation out of morning rush hour.
Actually, I was getting ready to move on to the right-of-way.
Okay, then I'll
And
wait.
then I'll get into town operations, and I grouped a whole bunch of them in. So what Mr. Brazil was referring to is we're restricting all work in the right-of-ways during the season from November 1st to May 1st. And there's exceptions to that. But for our town projects or for private contractors, we're not going to issue a right-of-way permit during our season. We're going to push that work off until off hours, whether it be at night, on the weekends, or in the summertime. The exceptions of that, and these are the things when I talk about that are beyond our control. They are state roads, and we don't have full authority to restrict we don't have full authority to restrict FDOT or utility companies from completing that work. But we're in regular contact with them. We urge them strongly to postpone these projects, do it off hours, particularly do it during the summertime. Generally, they work with us well.
Yep. Seen a lot of cooperation from them.
And we've gotten a lot of cooperation. Sometimes it takes a little more urging. A lot of the time they routinely work with the town staff to accomplish our traffic goals. For our other work or other service contracts in the community, we're going to bid it two ways. During normal work hours and after hours. This is a new way for us to go about doing business. I would expect you're going to see an increase in cost to some of these bids when we try to push it off out of the normal business hours. But we'll always bring those back to the town council for consideration with the increase in costs. A good example or bad example of that would be the hanging of the tree decorations and lights here in the community. Traditionally, it was done during the day. It caused all sorts of traffic problems on Raw Palm Way. It's those projects and many others. We're going to try to bid them off hours. I would expect they're going to come back with an increase in price. We did tell them not to do the work during the day, and then they came to fix some lights. And I guess during the normal business hours, we quickly had traffic problems, and we told them they need to get off the roadway. Again, we're going to continue to collaborate and urge utility and FDOT to conduct the work during the summertime or off hours. The only other exceptions to that would be emergency repairs. Things break in the roadways and we need to fix them. That leads to traffic congestion. West Palm Beach recently experienced one on Okeechobee Boulevard, and you can see how that ties up traffic here in the town of Palm Beach. That work has to continue. And now, just as an effort to provide better communications to the community, we've detailed our next upcoming projects for the next several years. And it allows us for better planning and possibly trying to stagger some of our projects as well. I'll ask Julie Parham to come up and present. And she's our senior project engineer for the town of Palm Beach.
Thank you, Kirk. Good morning, everyone. I will review how we've made some revisions to our upcoming capital projects on the island to mitigate for the traffic issues and, as Kirk said, scheduling things in the off-season as much as possible, and then trying to work with FDOT on their projects for cooperation. I know this is probably hard to read and see, but we are trying to just lay out all the upcoming projects, and we lump them in the green section on the top, shows all the north end projects, which is from the inlet down to Kawama Road. And then Midtown, we did from Kawama down to Southern, and then we did the south end, Southern down to the limits with South Palm Beach. The pink sections that are highlighted show the season for the next 3 years. As you can hopefully kind of see, we tried to limit and do most of the work in the off-season, the white sections. The red projects are the FDOT projects that are coming up. And it may be a little hard to tell, but there was a couple projects we were able to move out a year to try to balance any road closures and in the best interest. We'll see a little better on the maps that I have coming up. Those two projects I mentioned that we pushed out is the Coconut Row water main replacement. That's between Pendleton and Royal Poinciana Way. It was originally slated for the summer of 2025, but we pushed it out 1 year in coordination with the city of West Palm Beach, as it's their water main. We also pushed out paving in 4 South. That section is kind of in this midtown area, and with the DOT project happening along South County Road here, we decided that that was best to try to minimize the traffic impacts. From the schedule, the only projects that will be happening during season is undergrounding, some beach renourishment, the DOT projects, and then Phipps Ocean Park improvement project. All drainage, sanitary sewer, and then non-traffic impacting projects will proceed as planned, mostly to be scheduled in the off-season or in the summer. But those have minimal traffic impacts, so we didn't show all of them on the schedule. Some of the adjustments Kirk mentioned for undergrounding is to do a lot of the north-south work on the major corridors between Wells and Hammond at night and in the summertime. And the upcoming undergrounding work on phases 7 South and 8 will be limited to the east-west streets during season to minimize the traffic impacts. The beach renourishment projects that include truck hauls, they must occur between November 1st and April 1st due to sea turtle nesting season. But we're looking to try to find the most feasible routes and work with the contractor on the best timing of those to mitigate any impacts to traffic. And we are revising the right-of-way manual to define season beginning November 1st now. Here's an overall map showing kind of year by year the areas of town that will have projects between the paving, undergrounding, beach nourishment, DOT. I'll show a little more detail on the next slides. So in the north end, in the next few months, we'll be working on some sand forepassing, which is in coordination with the Army Corps' project of dredging the inlet. We'll be moving sand south from Reach 1 to Reach 2. We will also be doing some sewer lining in the north end. That won't begin until this summer. The truck haul sand forepassing will be starting in the next couple of weeks. I believe they're mobilizing. And then undergrounding work is happening in phase 7 north there. It actually fills out the whole triangle, but I wanted to show that the following year will be paving in that area. But the paving will be in the summer, the undergrounding's year-round. And then you'll see that we're going to be paving this coming summer in phase 5 north and 6 north, the undergrounding areas. Another project is the North County Road Canopy Drainage. Phase 1 component will be this coming summer, with phase 2 in 2026 to complete the road above ground work. Moving into Midtown, you'll see that we have the undergrounding, phase 7 south occurring up there, and then the following summer will be the paving in that area. Phase 8 undergrounding is also occurring, and then we have the Sunset and Bradley signal that Adam showed the renderings of earlier. We also have the Royal Poinciana medium beautification that will be happening this summer. Moving into 2026, we have proposed the Midtown Beach Renourishment Project. We have the Coconut Row water main I mentioned that was moved out. We're proposing to redo the signal at Pendleton and paving in phase 6 south there. This summer, we're going to finish up the Clark Alley concrete work to complete that project. And then in 2027, upgrades to this signal at Seabreeze. And moving further south, we're proposing to do some paving along Seaview on the eastern block, along with a drainage project by the Four Arts along the roadway there. Then moving south, in 2027, DOT will be doing a paving and improvement project along Royal Palm Way. Then the phase 4 south paving in this Midtown area, we pushed out to 2026. And then in the middle, the orange is the FDOT project from South County Road and South Ocean Boulevard. It's from Royal Palm Way down to just south of Southern to Emerald Beach Way. And then you'll see we have that Midtown Beach Nourishment, and following that in 27, we're proposing to do the Midtown Seawall and Linear Park project improvement. And I'll note these maps are all on the town's website. Maybe we can share a link with you all so you can reference them. We also have them broken out year by year if anyone's interested. And in the south end, we have DOT's paving project shown. I apologize, I think I swapped two of the projects. So the middle section from Ibis Isle up to almost southern to Emerald Beach Way is going to be happening in 2026. And then the southern section from Ibis Isle down south is actually happening in 25. So I will update that. But you'll also see the beach nourishment project we've done at Phipps with the dredging, but they have pretty much demobilized, and there's just some truck hauling to move some of that sand stockpile left. And then as recently approved was the Phipps Ocean Park Restoration Project. And this kind of shows that the beach nourishment project in reaches 7, 8, and 9, along with the DOT project, which I need to update, is actually in 2025 here.
And now we're going to move on to some of the ideas that the council previously considered and will be considering here in the near future as we continue to do some legal review. We're working with the planning, building, and zoning. One of the considerations that was presented to the council but was denied, at least at this time, was primarily is prohibiting noise equipment during the season, requiring them to have expensive soundproofing. It would basically have limited to interior work only. The council did not seem to have, along with input from the community, did not have a desire to adopt that at this time. Recently, at the last council meeting, though, they did adopt expanding the construction hours. And again, as it relates, there's always trade-offs at all these things, and we hear from other community members that are not always happy with the decisions. But if you're trying to mitigate the traffic, it will help mitigate the traffic to some degree, but may create some other problems. If it creates too many problems, I'm sure it will be brought back to the council for future consideration. So the new hours for construction within the community are from 7:30 to 5:30. They're not allowed to use any heavy equipment or any outdoor work before 8:30. This is approved on a trial basis. So in concept, if they are able to get on the island before the peak rush hours in the morning or leave later after the peak rush hours in the afternoon, it should have some effect on the traffic. Maybe small, but we're looking at everything. So that will continue to be reviewed as we move forward. Another item, two items that are still under review. One is a construction management agreement. And that was presented to the council for requiring projects over a specific size or some other threshold that they would be required to shuttle in workers. Certainly got a lot of pushback from the construction community that essentially advises that those increased in costs would be passed along to the homeowners. And we would also expect some legal challenges considering people's property rights, but Joanne is reviewing them. We're going to be bringing those back to council for further direction and discussion. And another idea was zoning moratorium, and that was proposed for a temporary moratorium on single-family construction and certain building additions. That was not adopted at this time, and that is still under legal review as well. I'll ask Wayne if there's anything more you would like to add.
No, thank you, Kirk. I think you covered it all.
Moving on to service work schedule adjustments. So our current code, we only regulate the landscape and construction industries as it relates to work hours. They're allowed to work. All the other service providers can come work on the island whenever they want, as long as they're abiding by our other ordinances relating to noise or the other ordinances that we have on the books. We encourage those service providers to work with the homeowners, and the homeowners to maybe consider offering that flexibility to their service providers, and if they can, if at all possible. That will spread the demand on the roadway. It's something that we're also doing here at Town Hall when we can. It's feasible, it makes sense, and not adversely affecting our operations. And on a trial basis, again, landscape companies are now permitted to operate between the hours of 7:30 and 3:30, Monday through Friday. We recognize that not all the landscape companies are abiding by that new ordinance, but we probably have about half compliance from the landscape industry, which helps if they, particularly if you can get them off over the peak demand. Now, our traffic starts to build around 2:30, 2:45, depending on the day. Some of those are some pretty early days when it starts to build, but if we can keep at it at the 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock rush hour, it certainly helps considering the traffic. Now, there are other things that members of the community may not like, and we encourage the landscapers to work with the neighbors and the homeowners to see if they can come in at the earlier start hour and leave the island sooner. Town operations, again, these are small, but we're doing everything we can. The hydrant testing that the fire department does, we don't do that during normal business hours. We don't want to do any work in the roadways that could impede traffic. Paul was mentioned earlier, the yard debris and trash pickup, although small, particularly in the commercial areas, his team starts earlier in the commercial areas to conduct those on the main arteries for trash and debris. So when you're doing that morning commute, you're not stuck behind a garbage truck on Royal Palm Way. They should be out of that area generally. So again, small. The police and the fire department have prioritized clearing the roadways as soon as possible after an accident. They make that a priority, a goal. Obviously, if there's a car stuck on the roadway, they'll try to get it moved, towed, unless it's a crime scene, and then they have to collect their evidence and document it prior to clearing the roadway. Again, small. Planning, zoning, and building implemented EPL permitting and licensing software. It gives the ability for contractors and homeowners to renew their licenses or submit permits and communicate with staff without having them coming into town hall. They were able to, we didn't do it specifically for traffic, but we did experience a 34% reduction in our town hall traffic. And other positions was the police, fire, if they're able to come in earlier outside of the normal hours or stay later, we encourage that. In many positions, that's not possible because we have to provide service to the community. Employee shuttle. This is an idea that's still being researched. And that was mentioned earlier by Adam as one of the ways to spread the demand. The town is coordinating with the Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce to, they're doing surveys, and we're doing it with some other business organizations as well, along with our own town staff. We're trying to establish if there's any interest, there's any demand for a program like this where they would have to find a place in West Palm Beach. These are the logistics that some members of our council are looking into along with town staff. That we could find a spot where someone can park and acquire the services of a shuttle company. But the first thing, because you cannot require it, we cannot legally mandate it, is we have to establish if there's even a demand for someone to participate in a program like that. So that's underway, and we'll be presenting that data to the town council in the future. Town serving concept, that's still under review by Planning, Zoning, and Building Commission. So in the past, it's town serving 50%. We've suggested maybe that number should be raised higher. Planning, zoning, and building is looking into that. It'll make a recommendation to the council in the near future, and that's primarily for food and beverage establishments. Any more? Regional collaboration. We've certainly, again, We're looking for short-term and long-term strategies as it relates to the town of Palm Beach and the county. We've certainly been much more active in our participation with meetings in West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County as they try to develop these short and long-term solutions. We participate in the West Palm Beach Go meetings, the Palm Beach County TPA, and the Palm Beach County Countywide Transportation Master Plan. So all the cities have joined forces with the county, but unfortunately, this is going to be many years out. So they sent out a request for proposal for a national traffic consultant to look at the transportation options and improvements here in Palm Beach County. That's going to take quite a while before they contract with a consultant, and then when they actually get the plan in hand and figure out how they're going to finance that plan. So there's still many challenges ahead, but we're actively engaged with our other community partners. We try to improve our traffic impact communication. We continue to push out our alerts and news releases. Sometimes those get to be too much, so people don't look at them. But we do try to let you know when there's a road closure, and we generally do that pretty good, or there's some other traffic issue. There's 12 new message boards put around the county, particularly when there's a road closure in front of Mar-a-Lago, advising vehicles and commuters to avoid the area. We have a dedicated email list to send in your suggestions, and that's traffic@townofpalmbeach.com. And we have a dedicated traffic section on our webpage. It says traffic impacts. You'll be able to see some of these information that we're discussing today and other things that were brought to the council, summarizing our actions. And excuse me, and also have a camera views. And we're working on some additional camera views as well on those north and middle bridges. It's live traffic cameras where you can go up, click on it if you're interested, or you're have travel plans and you want to look at the cameras and the situation out in the field before you make those movements. We're looking at another camera also west, and we're trying to work on the logistics of that. And now I'll move on to one of my, I don't know, least favorite topics. And my last two favorite topics, and that will be the bridge openings, and then we'll talk about the road closure. These are heavy contributors to our traffic problems here in the town of Palm Beach. Not our only ones. So members of let me describe the three different scenarios for bridge openings. So FDOT owns and controls operates the bridges. United States Coast Guard gets to decide when that schedule is going to be. Those laws have been in existence for over 100 years. We have no control over decisions. We don't own the bridges. We don't own the roadways. FDOT, the state does, and the United States Coast Guard dictates when those openings are going to take place. Now, with that said, I don't want you to think we're not doing anything. We've probably communicated with the Coast Guard and FDOT hundreds of times, maybe just this year alone. We're kind of maybe a thorn in their side. We try to be professional in our requests. We made many of them, along with the mayor, who's been of great assistance in our ask as well. So there's three bridge openings. You got the regularly scheduled bridge openings, which generally occur twice per hour during a normal season. And we've been able to, the mayor and members of staff have been able to successfully lobby the Coast Guard with assistance from the Secret Service and some of our other community partners to reduce the amount of openings. West Palm Beach Mayor has assisted us, Palm Beach County has assisted us, Sheriff Bradshaw has assisted us in making this request. So instead of twice per hour opening, it's once per hour between 7:30 and 9 in the morning, and once per hour between 4 and 6, as opposed to 2. And we all know how important the bridge openings are. If there's generally a traffic problem, we have a roadblock, whether it's because of construction or something broke, or down at Mar-a-Lago, or you probably got stuck on a bridge opening. So that's important to reduce it. But if that bridge opens up, that traffic will back up for several miles within minutes. Several miles. With the volume of traffic we have, you're going to get stuck in it, And that's going to take quite a bit more time, another 15 or so minutes for it to kind of clear out and sort of catch up to its normal traffic flow. When the President Trump is in residence at Mar-a-Lago, we get an additional consideration. Again, these are all things that we've been in communication with the Coast Guard for and asking for many months. And that is still the same in the morning, one opening between 7:30 and 9 in the morning, and from 2:15 to 6 on the north, middle, and southern bridge, there's only one opening as opposed to the two. So it moves up from the 4 o'clock to the 2:15. And most recently, the mayor asked for additional considerations. I do not expect that they would be granted. I've never seen them do that on an intracoastal bridge. Mayor Moore asked for no bridge openings between 2 and 6, or to permanently adopt when the security zone is enacted, meaning President Trump is in town, between 2:15 and 6. We've yet to hear back a response, but I might want to also add, because I give her credit, is Congressman Frankel's been very active and engaging and communicating the town's desires and needs to the Coast Guard, to DOT, and to the Army Corps on the regular scheduled bridge openings and on the barge openings. So now I'll describe our situation with the barge openings. Federal law allows on demand anytime a barge approaches the bridge, they get the opening on demand. We have the Bonefish Cove project, which is occurring just south of Lake Worth Bridge. They're taking the dredged sand from up on Peanut Island. Their goal is to dredge that sand, make 12 trips a day, 6 trips down and 6 trips back. So that's 12 openings. They have not been able to accomplish that because they're having equipment failures. That's good for the town because there's been less bridge openings. We've been very loudly and actively engaged with both Palm Beach County and the Army Corps and the contractors for this project as well. Palm Beach County is the sponsor. I believe they paid $6.4 million. Army Corps put in $10 million. It's a $16.4 million project. These are the requests we made from the beginning. We initially requested that they delay the project to at least after the inauguration. We asked them to delay the project until the summertime. We asked them to delay the project, to work in the off hours, to work at night. To get right to the point, all those requests were denied, but the meetings and the communications did not stop. We continue to make those requests, not only at the staff level, but mayor to mayor, senior staff, and Army Corps and Palm Beach County. Army Corps did acknowledge in the last phone call that we had with them that this project was a mistake, that it won't happen again because of the impacts, negative impacts it's caused in here for the greater community, not just the town of Palm Beach. And but they're in a legal situation with the contract where they cannot go back and change the means and methods unless they open the contract up for more negotiations. And they said they have to be very careful with the words they choose when they're speaking to the contractors because it will trigger a legal action. But with that said, they agreed to ask the contractor to make further considerations and voluntarily try to move the barges together, try to move during the regular scheduled openings, start earlier in the morning, so hopefully there's less barge traffic in the afternoon. And the town also did, because of work hours as it relates to noise, we allowed them to work on Sundays, so it doesn't really create any issues for us. And in theory, that should spread the trips out more during the week. Less trips Monday through Friday. I can't state that that's occurring. We had a situation, they are collecting the data and analyzing the data, and they said they have been trying to coordinate, and that proof that they were trying to coordinate with the regular scheduled bridge openings. But then again, we got a complaint yesterday where the chief told me that there was 2 barges, and it was three barges in a very short period of time, and obviously it's going to lock up traffic here within the town. So we're continuing to work with our counterparts. I wish we had more control or authority in the regulation of the bridge openings and the barges. We don't, but we're engaging on behalf of the residents and under the direction from the mayor and council to try to seek cooperation in any way we can. I have nothing more on the bridges, unless, sure, if you'd like.
And I just want to say that our staff actually, we monitor the opening logs at the bridges to make sure there's no unnecessary openings. We monitor that, we request that. There have been one or two that we saw unnecessary bridge openings. We can't enforce it, but we do file the complaint with the United States Coast Guard when we see that. That's it.
Thank you. And now on to the road closure. So let me just start by saying, as a member of town staff, don't try to read into it. This is an apolitical statement. Any actions that either a member, myself, or a member of the staff, don't read into it. There's no political. It's just representing the community's interests. So I'll start with a little bit of brief history here. Back in July, there was an assassination attempt on President Trump. The Secret Service decided to move him down to Mar-a-Lago. They advised the town that the roadway be closed from July 20th indefinitely. We objected to that. We objected to the permanency of the road closure, but particularly when he wasn't a residence. Our attorney, at the direction of mayor and council, sent a letter to their legal staff stating those objections and asking them to provide the legal authority for them to have a permanent road closure. On August 19th, they agreed to not have the road closure when President Trump was not in residence. And I also feel compelled to add this. We have regular communications with the Secret Service and PBSO, and despite our objections that we raised to them on this issue, they've been nothing but professional and generally very responsive. And we have situation and issues down in that general area with some of the residents. They quickly will make adjustments and correct them. They've been nothing but professional, but sometimes you're going to have differences of opinion. We did conduct a legal review, not that we were necessarily challenging it in any way. There's pre-existing case law on the subject. They have the legal authority to close the roadway, but that doesn't stop us from communicating and try to collaborate with those that are providing that safety and security and protection to President Trump. Myself and Chief Caristo met with at that time, the interim director. We've had regular meetings with the members of the Secret Service and command staff at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office to discuss a number of different ideas. What came out of those meetings is this: at a minimum, they'll try to be more efficient in the deployment and removal of the barricades so that there's no delay. We've asked them about other engineering options that might be considered down there in front of Mar-a-Lago. They did advise they're not engineers, and I said myself, neither. But the science supports the math, the science, the physics relating to a bomb blast and other operational concerns make me believe that's unlikely, but they would have their engineers come look at it. But I'm not optimistic that anything's going to be done other than what's currently in place now. But we did ask if they would be willing to explore that as an option. And that's really all I can add. I mean, it's a state road, and people are saying the town's not doing anything. We're doing everything that we can legally, and that's within our control. It sounds like we're throwing our hands up in the air and doing nothing, but that's nothing to be further from the truth. I mean, there's been so many meetings internally and external with these groups trying to get some considerations in place. But it's a state road. The state owns the road, and they have the authority under the law to close the roadway. So we try to collaborate with them and try to make it the best that we can under the circumstances, and we will continue to do so. And I have nothing more to add on that. I'm expecting, I got one more thing I'm going to throw at Joanne.
Okay.
And she might have to field some of these questions that we have coming going forward, because some members of the community wonder why we aren't doing some things. And it's just, in some cases, we considered it, we talked about it, we discussed it. It just may not be feasible, because the enforcement end is almost impossible, just not feasible for other reasons. And more importantly, it may not be actionable because of the legal consequences. Just some of these things are not legal that get brought to us, but we rely on Joanne to do that research. So I'm going to toss one Joanne her way, and that because this comes up a lot. And if she can provide an overview on the restrictions on the state and local roads within the town of Palm Beach.
Sure, and good morning. And Kirk, I'll start right there with the state roads, and obviously the bridges coming into our town are controlled by FDOT and the state, and so that very much limits what we can do in terms of traffic. You may be aware there's a number of places around the country. One I'm familiar with is in Newport, Rhode Island, where the state of Rhode Island joined with the city of Newport in increasing tolls for out-of-staters coming into Newport. And I checked their website. They charge $4 for a non-resident with an Easy Pass, $6 for a non-resident with no Easy Pass. And if you prove that you are a resident of Rhode Island, you can avoid that pricing. That is permissible because the state of Rhode Island worked together with the city of Newport. But you need to understand what the implications are for Palm Beach. And there's two constitutional concerns that come into play. And one is referred to as the Dormant Commerce Clause. And that is that under the Constitution, it's the federal government that has authority to regulate commerce among the several states. And courts interpret that constitutional provision to include a negative or dormant aspect that prohibits state and local governments from enacting ordinances that discriminate against interstate commerce by using measures to benefit in-state economic interests and burden out-of-state competitors. And so it's permitted in Rhode Island because here you are saying that all Rhode Island residents can have access, but you're charging differential pricing for out-of-staters. Here, the concern would be, allowing. It's not going to help the town to allow all Florida residents in. I think concerns I've heard are, hey, can we close the bridges to non-Palm Beachers? To do anything like that would mean that would limit your ability to have service workers come to your home. You need to apply it even-handedly across the board. And the burden would have to not clearly be excessive relative to the local benefits. So that Dormant Commerce Clause really restricts even what we can do on our local roads. And another example I'll give you is New Jersey. New Jersey, back in the mid-2000s, passed emergency regulations. They were seeking to detour trucks that were passing through the state of New Jersey from using their local roads in congested areas. And that was held to be unconstitutional, even though they were applying even-handedly without regard to the citizenship of the owner of the trucking company or the truck driver, because those vehicles were being restricted from engaging in interstate travel through the state of New Jersey. In other words, this idea that you could restrict folks to only pass through your state or city was found to be unconstitutional. And then finally, just one other example from the city of Lackawanna in New York, where the city tried to pass a code prohibiting heavy trucks from traveling on all but two specified routes within the city. That too was deemed invalid under state law that required you to connect your access through state roads. Now, Florida doesn't have that same state law, but the idea applies here too, because you can't discriminate against interstate commerce. You need to make sure that to the extent there's heavy trucks coming up A1A that need to get to the bridges to get out of Palm Beach, you need to really be careful about what kind of regulations you can put on those routes. Things that can be done by the local government with respect to its roads include things that the town has been doing. That includes having differential parking rates for residents. You see the RPP program that's been rolled out recently. The town could close roads to pedestrian and bicycle traffic only. I'm not sure that that would actually help the traffic problem necessarily, but that is something that the town could do if it's applied even-handedly. So not just, to town residents, but to everyone across the board. And so those are some of the, as we brainstorm solutions to these problems, those are the concerns. Again, there's a constitutional concern arising from the Dormant Commerce Clause and not being able to discriminate against interstate commerce. And there's also, I didn't mention, but there's also a fundamental right to travel. It's not enshrined in the Constitution, but it's a fundamental right that's been a longstanding fundamental right recognized by the courts as well that comes into play.
Thank you, Joanne. I'll turn it over to you, Michael, for questions.
Thank you, Kirk. I've got a number of questions here, and if there's some more, pick them up and we'll go through them. One general question I'll ask before we start with the individual ones is what we can do as residents to help the situation. You've gone through a number of things the town is doing. Are there some things that we should be doing? You mentioned block the box. There must be some others where we can be mindful of the traffic and not contributing to making it worse.
Things that come to mind that you already mentioned. One is not block the box. We all have to serve our part within the community to prevent or impede traffic flow within the town. And the other thing that I mentioned earlier is consider providing flexibility to your staff or service members at your house to see if they'd be willing to kind of spread the demand on the roadways, come in earlier, stay later, things of that nature, because that's what the town is doing where they can. May not be a possibility for everyone or in every situation, but we're all in this together. And you've heard about some of them. I didn't even mention some of the other small solutions that we've implemented, because it may just even seem silly, but we're doing everything we can, and we're going to continue to listen and try to develop new ideas and continue to discuss them and seek direction from the council.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a number of, not surprisingly, a number of questions and comments here. Some of these I think we've touched on already, but let me kind of go through them. One question is, we talked about shuttling people in. And I think you did that, Kirk, in the context of contractors paying for it. One question is, would the town consider underwriting the cost of a transit pooling system for retail trades, restaurant employees from West Palm Beach, using parking lot that the town obtains and the town operating the shuttle at the town's expense?
All those things are looked at in parallel. Where we're trying to do two things. We're trying to gauge what the demand is. There's no point in us in moving forward with the logistics of a parking lot and the actual shuttle and the financing of it if demand simply doesn't exist there. Frankly, I'd be surprised if the demand is there, because people aren't going to do that unless it improves their workday. And for them to have to go drive out of the way to the parking lot, park the car, wait for the shuttle, both to and on and off the island, there'd have to be some sort of incentive for them. They're going to lose time. There would have to be some sort of, either there's no place for them to park over here, or there's some sort of financial center. But I don't want to prejudge what the survey results are going to show. But I just think it's common human behavior. The traffic in Palm Beach County is really bad. I live about 12 and a half miles from here, and many times it takes me an hour to get home. So I can't imagine if I had to work within the town and I have to go then drive and wait both ways, 15, 20 minutes to get on a shuttle. But we'll we'll see how it all works out.
Okay, next question. How can ambulances get to the hospital when the bridges are at full capacity? And further follow-up in terms of with further development in West Palm Beach, isn't that even going to get worse?
Yeah, we have all sorts of operational and mitigation plans to address this, but and this is not a new topic for us. The police and fire department are working together seamlessly on these plans and enacting these plans, but I'll let our fire chief, Sean Baker, and Nick Caristo take it from here, and I'll jump in with any details that I may have.
Sure. So I can address the ambulance getting to the hospital. We have multiple contingencies to get our ambulances not only through traffic, but off the island. If there ever is a situation where we physically can't move ambulances off the island and get to the hospitals, we have the ability to fly people out. We've already worked with the healthcare district. We have 5 helicopter landing zones strategically placed throughout the island as an absolute last resort to fly people out. I will tell you, through coordination with all of the small items that Town Manager Blouin has discussed, we've actually been able to move a little better through the intersections, realizing that the police department now controls every intersection, right? Through dispatch, they know when we're navigating the corridors, so we are experiencing our response times around the island and to the scenes holding. Further, we have other contingency plans for when the traffic is completely at capacity and there is no movement on the island. We actually can use alternate lanes of traffic to get off the island. So we're watching our monthly response times, making sure that we're not seeing spikes, what's going on, and working with PD specifically to make sure that we can get through the hospitals.
So what Chief Baker was referring to is a couple things. We have the ability, because of this new software we have on our lights, to remotely control those lights from communications if need be. Obviously, we don't do that for normal traffic movement, but for emergencies, they have the ability to do that. The fire trucks also have something called Opticom in their apparatus as well, which gives them preference. It'll turn the light green upon their direction. Trauma Hawk will respond anytime. Will improve the medical care for a patient. They'll respond. That's the lowest threshold you can think of. We have the 5 landing spots in town. You also have GPS. You tell me about some other new technology that was adopted, the GPS.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit more on the Opticom. The Opticom system sees when a fire truck is moving in a direction, and it actually turns all lights ahead of us green. So it'll basically flush the intersections to move traffic out of the way. We have a new technology in our newest vehicle that actually reaches into the vehicle, lowers the volume on the vehicle, and lets them know that an emergency vehicle is approaching. So it will take care of all Stellantis vehicles, Volkswagen, some Mercedes vehicles, but we're talking about expanding that through the whole fleet. So again, this isn't when traffic is completely blocked, but when there is the ability to move, you will have a notification that there's an emergency scene on your path. Also through Apple Maps and Waze, as emergency scene is happening with that vehicle, soon to be all vehicles, it'll let you know that during your course of traffic that there is an emergency vehicle in the roadway. So again, just another notification, use the technology to help.
And like Chief Baker said, they have the ability to manually block the opposite side of the roadway if we need passage. We've practiced it, we've enacted it. That works well. And but most importantly, we're monitoring the response times. The turnout time is from when, as soon as they get the information to call, how long does it take them to get on the truck, and then the transfer, the movement time or transportation time to the scene, and then off the island. All those times are monitored and analyzed. We have not experienced those problems to date, and we'll continue to look for additional mitigation strategies should we need them.
Okay. There's a question on the volume of bridge traffic, referencing information that we were given that were 38,000 cars a day. Today we heard 58,000. Is that a new number? Is that a credible number on the 58,000? And also, is it broken down at all in terms of which bridges people are crossing?
I believe Adam did provide some of that data. I think our busiest bridge is the Royal Park Bridge, and he had those traffic counts that he discussed with you.
Yeah, the traffic counts were based off of the DOT's numbers, and yes, the Royal Park was the busiest.
And I guess you have it broken down, but that, I think you did break down 58,000.
Oh yeah, sorry. The North Bridge was 19,000. The Royal Park is 27,000, and the South Bridge was 12,500.
Okay. Chief?
Yeah, I just want to mention, the police department just acquired an analytical program for our surveillance cameras, specifically the ones on the bridges. We analyzed that. We just received this program. We're starting to gather data, and it gives us a wealth of information. Not only does it tell us how many cars are coming on and off, we can break it down by the hour. We could break it down by out-of-state plates. We can break it down by service vehicles, and what we do
by type of vehicle.
What's that?
The type of vehicle.
Well, yes, the type of vehicles. Like, if I want to know the probability of how many construction or related cars come on the island, we break it down as the pickup truck, works vans, box trucks, and trailers. And I can break that down from how many came over at 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning, how many came over at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and we can break that down, and it gives me a count on every single one of them. So we just received this, and now we're starting to collect that data, and that's how we're going to optimize the time, and that's how we're going to allocate our resources based on the data that we receive.
Okay. There's a number of questions, not surprisingly, relating to Bradley Place and the movement of traffic through there. A number of questions. One of them is the traffic backs up 2 or 3 miles on Bradley Place southbound Monday to Friday from 3:30 to 5:30. Why not eliminate the left turn lane onto Sunset so that there are 2 lanes southbound at all times heading towards Rawl Ponciano Way?
Paul?
That's the left, I think they're referring to the left turn lane in front of the Biltmore, turning on to Sunrise, right in front of, right at Publix there.
Part of, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, part of what we're proposing is to try to increase the through lanes. That change in geometry of the roadway was to help exactly that.
And would part of that, would you consider, would that be helpful to get rid of that left turn lane going there in front of, basically that's a left turn lane going, that people use when they go to Publix?
I think you're going to see pushback if you try to completely eliminate that movement.
In one of the options that we were looking at was not eliminating the left turn at Sunset, but providing the left, sort of a shared left and through lane, as well as an additional through lane. So southbound, you would have the option to go through from both lanes or turn left out of the leftmost lane.
Another question relating to the same space, have you considered eliminating parking there from 3 to 6 or from 2:30 to 6 when the heaviest traffic is going through there?
What we've proposed is that we permanently eliminate it to try to shift parking for part of the day and then no parking for certain hours. The enforcement of that is going to be truly challenging, and I'm not sure it would be effective. What we're proposing is to eliminate the parking on both sides of the road and pick up capacity for that additional asphalt.
Another question in the same area, 2 lanes north in front of Publix, won't that cause a problem with cars in the right lane going straight and not turning right? In other words, there's sort of a bottleneck there as you get from Sunset, you get to Sunset if you don't turn, and 2 lanes try and go north. Right now, I think you do have parking there. So I'm guessing that the answer is probably related, that that's only going to work if you get rid of the parking.
We can maintain some parking limited between Rural Poinciana and Sunset. from sunset to sunrise, we need to eliminate the parking completely.
And
So-
if you do that, are you going to have a bottleneck at some point in there once the parking resumes?
No, it would be to permanently eliminate the parking.
All the way up to Atlantic Avenue?
No, just to, as of now, sunrise.
Just that one block?
Yes.
Isn't that going to create a bottleneck once if you continue to go north at sunset
You could
or sunrise?
continue this philosophy further north, and you're going to have additional impacts. The goal right now is if we can increase the capacity as you're approaching Royal Point Siena, we can't guarantee that it's going to solve everything upstream to the north, but you'll move more through the intersection.
And that's where we tend to have the biggest problems, is at the rush hour at the end of the day. It's all about creating efficiencies. Like Paul said, it's not going to solve every problem, and there's trade-offs. The parking and those need to be weighted and considered. But from a mitigation relating to traffic, this is what we're encouraging for consideration if our eyes are focused on helping with the traffic situation. But it creates efficiencies. So if you're not stuck behind a car that's looking to make a left or a right, and that's where the redesign of that will help the traffic flow a little bit better and clear it out.
And the further north you go, the less right-of-way that you have. Right in this area, we're able to work within the existing right-of-way. The trade-off is losing parking, but we can increase capacity as you approach the intersection.
This is a similar question, the other end of the block, essentially, at County Road and Sunset. In front of Trevini, turning onto County Road, we need a right turn lane for folks who are trying to go down south on the island, but not get caught in bridge traffic. Essentially, a right turn lane at County Road at that intersection. But right now, as I understand it, if you get in that right turn lane, you're going to have to immediately turn right. Is there some way that if you want to continue south there on County, you're able to deal with that?
That one's challenging, and we're working on that whole segment from Royal Point Siena, probably back north of Sunrise. That's the next one. We're working on Bradley now. We're looking at those configurations. PD's manually created a slip lane, which is a good temporary solution, but we need to look at that entire corridor as well, and we've started that.
Okay. All right, this one I think Joanne's probably going to want to weigh in at. Can we institute a bridge toll or a road usage fee like New York City? I think that's essentially a reference to congestion traffic. Is that something that we can do? And there's also an addition, can we also charge to use the beaches? Well, we do charge parking, substantial parking. But Joanne, what about that, a bridge toll or some type of congestion fee pricing?
So again, the bridge, it's FDOT that essentially owns the bridge. And so nothing can happen relative to tolls on the bridge or congestion, or it's also referred to as cordon pricing in New York. The idea that if you're coming into a certain area, you pay an increased fee based on how busy the area is at that time of day. So our options there are very limited without participation from the state. I will say, though, that what we've attempted to do in terms of landscape service hours and construction hours and looking at construction management plans that would require folks to be shuttling workers, those are aimed at the same kind of goal, right? To reduce the congestion during certain times of the day. And you heard from Kimberly Horn this idea that we want to expand, if we can't expand capacity, can we expand the hours over which the traffic is spread? And I think that's something that I've worked on with Wayne in terms of the construction hours that the council just approved, temporarily amending those hours to spread it out. And so that's another way to accomplish a similar result.
A couple of questions regarding bridges here. Comment that the bridges shouldn't be open between the rush hour, but also is it possible that barges be towed by boats that could fit underneath the bridge and would not require a bridge opening.
That's one of the things I did not mention earlier, but that was one of our discussions, we can't dictate, I should say the Army Corps, who is the one who's administering the contract with the contractors, they can't change the means and methods. They would need to reopen the contract, and they said they have no money budgeted to reopen that contract. But with that said, that was one of the requests we made to the Army Corps and to some of the contractors, was if they could possibly use a barge, smaller size, that would not require a bridge opening. They did not respond to that request. We also had some members of the community that was willing to potentially finance one of these smaller barges, and we were looking into the costs, to what that might cost, and I'm still waiting on that information, but I think it was most likely cost prohibitive. We're talking in the millions of dollars, even to lease barges during that period of time.
Okay. One question about the FDOT project around Sloan's Curve and where the status is on that.
Julie, FDOT project near Sloan's. Do you know schedule?
Yeah, this is on, sorry. That project will be happening in 2026. There's currently, I don't recall the date, the outreach meeting coming up at South Fire Station that DOT is holding. Do you recall the date of it, Patricia? No.
We have town has, I should say, FDOT is having a meeting that's coming up. We did push out. Is that relating to the project that Michael's referring to?
Yep.
That's Sloan's
Okay.
Curve, yes.
The Civic Association also pushed out that information as well.
I think
Town
it's the
has, will
26th.
continue to push that date out.
Yes.
And maybe I could tell you right now when that meeting and where that's taking place relating to that project
It's South Fire.
is South Fire.
February 25th. Thank you, Jennifer. And yes, that project construction, they're looking to bid the project later this year and have it start in the beginning of 2026.
Trying to organize these in some organized fashion based on the geography in the town, since there seem to be, there's a couple general questions here. Here's one about Brazilian Avenue, where it intersects with County Road. Could you change Brazilian Avenue where it intersects the county to two ways, or install a rotary? Right now, forcing drivers to get caught there creates a traffic jam. That's always been a problematic intersection in town.
So in general terms, I'll leave the expertise up to our engineering, but in general terms, the goal is to try to keep the traffic moving north and south, and so it's not blocking one of our main arteries. There was some designs that was presented to council. The concept of putting in a rotary was also mentioned, but I think that was mentioned primarily from an aesthetic point of view. But from an engineering point of view, I don't believe there's enough roadway to effectively put a roundabout that would be functional. Roundabouts are very effective, but you need a certain amount of roadway in order to accomplish that. So I don't think that's a realistic option, but I'll let Mr. Brazil address it.
Paul?
A roundabout or a rotary will not fit in that intersection. It's also DOT's intersection. We've asked them previously about possible redesigns, and their next step would be to signalize the intersection because it is so non-conforming. And that step council really didn't want, and I don't think that the community would like the aesthetics of a signalized control intersection there.
You mean a light?
Yeah, 4 of them. Also, where the cones are now, when DOT comes through with their project, they're going to build elevated curb there and landscape it. So at the end of the day, it's going to look a lot better.
Okay. Question about whether the town could use flashing lights in non-peak hours. And there's a specific reference to Sunrise area. Would that be more efficient?
I don't believe it's going to be more efficient. You're going to have an enforcement issue. Right now, there's the signals have the ability to recognize that someone is waiting. So off-peak hours, people can get trapped going east-west because the priority is so much north and south. The signal system has the ability to interrupt the north-south and let the east-west go, and that's probably the most efficient way you can do it.
Okay. Number of questions relating to Mar-a-Lago and the traffic down there. Residents have recommended putting up a wall around Mar-a-Lago, protecting it instead of the roadway. Is that something that's being looked at so that the road could stay open, some type of wall or something like that?
I addressed that during our presentation. I addressed that with the interim director of the Secret Service. In concept, it's not a bad idea. Just they're telling me they do not believe that's a feasible option considering how close the roadway is to Mar-a-Lago and the physics and math behind a bomb blast. But they did tell me that they would send some engineers to look at some other possible solutions.
Okay. Number of questions regarding the club status of Mar-a-Lago. Are we exploring legal options that could create some leverage regarding Mar-a-Lago functioning as a club? You know, if the club were closed, would that have an impact on traffic?
That's a legal question, but I can give some general background, and Joanne can give you some more legal details. The road closure and the club operation is two different things. The road, regardless of whether the club was operating or not, the road is going to remain closed while he's in residence. Myself, the mayor, the chief, Joanne, went down to Mar-a-Lago. We met with the management of Mar-a-Lago. We met with their attorney to discuss all of our concerns. And one is relating to the traffic management plan and the declaration of use agreement that the town has entered into with Mar-a-Lago. There were some objections to the town's position on how we interpreted some of the operations, and that it was never resolved. But I think if there was a legal action, that could take many, many years in the courts, and I'm not sure we'd see any traffic relief during that time. And I'm not experienced to say any more. I'll let our attorney add any more substance to that statement.
Sure, thanks, Kirk. I mean, Kirk addressed it the way I would have. I don't want to get into detail on what the town's position is relative to the declaration of use agreement, except to say the issue is when the president is in residence, the road is closed. The president owns not only Mar-a-Lago, but a number of other residential homes on Woodbridge Avenue. And so, you know, the idea that relief would come if Mar-a-Lago was allowed to operate as a club, I think is a misnomer. I mean, he could, if he lived in another residence on Woodbridge Avenue, the road would still need to be closed. And so I want to stay away from, you know, whether there's arguments about the declaration of use agreement or not, because I don't think that really pertains to the traffic issue that we're here trying to solve.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? That's my question. And I didn't really address what I was trying to get to because I didn't have enough space to write clearly. My idea is to let the tail wag the dog, more or less. The dog wagging the tail. You put some kind of pressure on his clubs. If there are legal repercussions for the way he opened the club, and if there is some issues with that, you can certainly threaten the court that something is going to be done, at which point maybe he's going to have a lot of unhappy members, and these are a lot of people who are supporting him, that might give some kind of push for him to figure out a way to keep that bridge open. Because ultimately, that's the problem. We've done all these controls, all these studies, all these great adjustments, but the real problem, the elephant in the room, is that bridge being closed. So how do you figure out a way to push or negotiate the art of negotiating here with Trump to figure out a way to keep that bridge open?
You mean the road or the bridge?
Sorry, the bridge, road to the bridge.
You mean the road? Okay.
Yeah. So if we can figure out a way, if there is a legal angle here, I would love to pursue it just to see what the town can do to protect its citizens, being hostage on its own island.
I understand the position and I understand the argument. I think it still comes down to the U.S. Secret Service. I mean, we met with them, and the issue is if the president is here in residence, whether at Mar-a-Lago or somewhere else, he's entitled to the protection that the Secret Service provides.
Yeah, this is something that I know from civic talking to Kirk and others since the summer has been going on for quite some time. I mean, the concern about having the road closed while the president was not here, I know, Kirk, you raised a lot of concerns about that, and I think this town staff has done as good a job as possible in terms of dealing with this and limiting the road closures. I think the reality is that when the president is in town, the road is going to be closed, and we have to live with that. Kirk, I think you've done as good a job as you can in terms of trying to make that as precise as possible and get the road opened as soon as possible and have it closed at the latest possible time. And I think that's probably the reality that we're living with for the next 4 years, that the best you're going to be able to do is just close it at the last possible moment and open it as soon as you possibly can. A couple other questions relating to other areas, and then we're about done. One question about the breakers, proposed breakers project. What is going to be done to minimize traffic, particularly large construction trucks coming in for the proposed breakers and breakers project, and the parking lot, proposed breakers parking lot members and of their facilities. I think that question relates to the construction of the breakers, but also I know the breakers does have a shuttle system for their employees and so on.
I'm not familiar with all details. I know the breakers is presenting plans to the town council for consideration. Those items are under consideration from the council either now or in the future. Have they officially in April? So those discussions will come up in April. What the town decides and how they want to handle that matter, I have no comment on. I don't have any special knowledge, but some sort of agreement, construction management agreement of sorts, could be entered in if the council so desires.
Question about West Palm Beach, the further development there, the increases on demand on the roads and the bridges, and are they adding any new infrastructure? Are they doing any things to help minimize the impact of additional traffic from the additional number of residents they're going to have there?
I shouldn't have moved.
I can provide an opinion, but it doesn't seem that the considerations for traffic and parking is part of their master plan. I need my experts in planning, though, and building, and my engineers to make further comment on that. Matter of fact, it seems that they've sort of disregarded that aspect of the planning, and they want to make it a walkable city.
Yes.
I've objected to that for many years. In the concept, I think we haven't. The demographics are a little older here in South Florida. It's hot every day in the summertime. It rains every day, but they seem to believe that people are going to get out on bicycles and walk, and therefore there's going to be not enough need for actual roadways where commuter culture and society. And one of the projects just over the bridge, one Flagler, the town did engage in a lawsuit with them. Sad to say we did lose that lawsuit. But we're doing everything that's within our control. I can't comment on their development process unless Wayne or Paul want to add something more.
They've adopted a complete streets approach, which is the goal is mode shift, to get people out of the cars and with pedestrian, bicycle friendly, shared rides, etc. Their goal is very different, and their communities also, in terms of roadways, pretty well built out. So capacity of roadways, they have a similar limitation, but they are growing very quickly.
Their growth is concerning as it relates to traffic and quality of life here in the town of Palm Beach. And they also have some substantial capital improvement projects on their near short term, next 2 or 3 years as well, that could exacerbate some of the traffic problems.
DOT is also eventually going to redevelop the Okeechobee Boulevard corridor, and what that geometry looks like is yet to be seen.
Couple questions about parking, one specifically about getting rid of parking. I believe this question relates to Royal Ponciana, eliminating parking there. And there's also a question about the effects of the Park Mobile has had.
The only proposal that I know of to minimize parking on Royal Poinciana would be the slip lane that we're proposing to town council, and it would eliminate parking spots west of Bradley on the north side of the road. There's a set right adjacent to Bradley Park.
But not between Bradley and County.
No. But I don't know of any proposal for eliminating parking there.
There's a question here about the Coast Guard and the bridges. The community's held hostage by the Coast Guard, control over the bridges. Is there anything residents can do to let the Coast Guard know? I mean, I know that the Coast Guard has control over the navigable waterways that is out there and has for quite some time. Is there anything we can do in terms of making our concerns known with regard to this?
We've made the concerns known on behalf of the community very consistently and very loudly for the past couple of years, but even particularly in the past 6 months. I'm not sure there's anything more that a resident could do at this moment. But with the change of offices here in the country, we may have some access to the new administration to maybe have some of these discussions, to discuss some of these policies and laws to see if there's any flexibility in making a change.
Okay, well, thank you, Kirk and Chief, Paul. Was that your question? Was that your question I just asked?
No, I'm sorry, my handwriting wasn't very good. The question is, what is anticipated in the Royal Ponciana Plaza parking area when the theater and the restaurant open up?
The question, I think, and I guess I didn't understand the way the question was written, but it relates to Royal Ponciana Plaza. Once that playhouse opens up, is there and the additional demand on traffic and parking that will create?
I could just provide a common sense opinion. It's going to increase. It's going to make parking and traffic more difficult in that area.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Kirk, for doing this. We appreciate it. And it's a difficult problem, but we thank you for taking the time today to come and explain to residents all that you're doing.
And we thank you and the Civic Association and everyone from the community that showed up today to engage with us. And thank you very much.
Okay.